Okay, so it's 7 o'clock. So I guess we should start. And I see some old friends and some new friends. So welcome everyone. There's a few people who has come to Yeshinobu for the first time. So maybe I should just mention briefly what this place is. So we're part of a global organization called FDMT that was founded by two Tibetan lamas back in the 1970s, Lama Yeshe, Lama Sopa Rinpoche. So we have sister centers in all over the world. Just last weekend, I went to compassion cultivation training at our sister center in London, Jamyan. So there are all these wonderful places spread across the world. And what we're trying to do, we call the Yeshinobu Mind Training. So we're trying to help people to cultivate good qualities, like maybe become more focused and less distracted, maybe more compassionate to ourselves and others, become more aware of ourselves and others. And it's all based on the idea that the mind, the brain can actually be trained and all these qualities can be cultivated. So that's what we're trying to do. And I got a little note here with the things that we have that is coming up. So we have a course starting on Monday. If you want to join, it's still possible. It's called Foundation of Mindfulness. Then we have a course called Foundation of Compassion, which starts a little later. We have a course called Introduction to Tibetan Buddhism, one introduction to Buddhist meditation. We have Yin Yoga, and then we're going to start morning yoga with Pamela sitting right here. And then we also have a really nice, it's a book circle with a book called Ethics for a Whole World, written by the Dalai Lama. So if you're interested, please go to the website and check all these things out. So quite a lot of nice things happening. And then, of course, the topic for this evening is none of that. So after this little commercial break, I'm going to turn the attention to Stephan. So Stephan has been coming here for, I don't know how many years, 10? When did you first...
Maybe you know.
Yes.
Maybe.
She handed she handed me over.
Yeah, I was still a monk. Yeah.
Yeah, and you stopped when Geshe Sherab came. Then I got the message. You were not a monk anymore at that time. Okay. I don't remember which year that was.
2008.
Yeah. So more than 10 years.
Yeah, I think you were there in the early 2000 something. Because I started 2001. So I think you were one of the first ones to come to Västerås.
And I think for me, Stephan is a really great teacher in that he is a monk for 12 years or 11 years, and also then has been living in a relationship, really understands the life of all of us in a way that maybe some of the Eastern teachers sometimes don't do. So I think he's really drawing on a lot of experience and learning and are teaching in a way that's very deep, but also very, very relevant. So I'm happy that you keep coming back to us and sharing that. And then, before we start, just a few housekeeping things. Turn your mobile phones off. Don't leave them on vibrate. Doesn't work. If you're staying for the weekend, it's good if you can adopt one of the cups. So write your name on it. Saves a bit of washing. Toilets there and one around the corner in the back. There is another. If disaster strikes, there's a fire exit back there and one there. And one there. Yeah, mainly those two. And with that, I'm now going to shut up and hand over to Stephan. Thank you.
I never know how to start because there's so so much piling up. It would be great if we could just download, so that's done, and then we could just sit here and smile at each other and love each other. The text, so I will say a few words and then we will sit quietly just to have some space to settle down. So this text, the 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas for Bodhisattva by Tokme Zongpo. He lived in the 14th century and it is one of the most venerated texts in the Tibetan tradition. And it is a text, if you enter that text and meet Tokme Zongpo, the author, through his words, through his experiences, it can really have an impact on your life. It's a text which is not like, okay, I read this and then I put it aside. It's actually a text which can be an ally for you for the rest of this life. And there are similar texts like this, but this one is short, so that's one advantage. So it's 37 verses, stanzas. And Tokme Zongpo has a way of really coming really to the essence, and he's sharing his own experiences. So it can be a very touching text if we not only approach this text with the rational zone mind, so the rational trying to gather information mind, but if we allow our heart to be touched by a person from a different century, from a different culture, but going through the same struggles, going through the same turmoils, going through the same suffering than all of us. And I'm going to use the translation of a teacher I really appreciate, Ken MacLeod. And so those of you who want to work with this text for a while, I recommend to get this book from Ken MacLeod. It's a commentary on the text. Maybe I give you a little flavor, just as a first contemplation from the way Tokme Zongpo writes. So this is not from this text, it's a prayer he wrote. Maybe I can say, so Tokme Zongpo had a very difficult life. His mother died when he was 2. His father died when he was 4. Then his grandmother took care of him and she died 2 years later. And then an uncle took care of him. And then with 8 he entered a monastery. And he became known for the warmth of his heart and his wisdom. And in a quite young age he was appointed to be the abbot of a small monastery, and since he had no relatives anymore, also that time was very hard for him, because in Tibetan monasteries the monks, they still rely on sponsors. So it's the monasteries, they don't take care of medicine, even sometimes food. Yeah. So, and a monk who does not have sponsors from family has a hard time. On top of that, he was very humble, so he didn't kind of, people didn't notice him. And he also didn't want to, go out and just mindlessly recite some services in families, which then would give offerings to him. So that was also a very tough time for him. And then at a very young age, he was offered a more prestigious job as an abbot in another monastery, and he refused. And then he spent 20 years in retreat. And the Tibetan style of retreat is not like having a nice hut and everyone brings you food every day, right? So it's really different. And then Tokme Zongpo wrote this text, not for others initially, but as a way to remind himself in contemplation and meditation for how to respond with an open heart to the suffering of humankind. Not now humankind, I include also the pigs and cows, because they are also just people. Chickens also. So they are also part of humankind in the way I use this word. So how to respond? There's so much suffering in this world, in your life. I mean, in your life, in your family, and in your surroundings. How to not turn away. How to have an open heart without being overwhelmed. How to have an open heart and then becoming part of the solution and not part of the problem by being crushed by pain, by suffering. And this text gives you approaches and gives you techniques to come to a place where you don't need to close your heart anymore. And does it in a very inspiring way. My intention is to open this text. Entering a text is like entering a place. It's not like, so of course a text is always in the rational zone because it's words, but what is actually transmitted is an experience, like in a painting or in a poem, where when you look at a painting or when you read a poem, then you don't analyze the words, but you allow yourself to be touched by the art, and with that you meet the artist, and you meet that state of mind from where the art emerges. And the art of the poems of Tokme Zongpo, they emerge from the awakened heart. And when you allow yourself to be touched, then this text can work on a deeper level, not just like, oh, what are the 3 of this and the 4 of that, and memorizing things and nothing happens here. So my intention is to, of course, use the rational zone, but actually make an invitation for this, making an invitation to you to allow yourself to be touched. And that's difficult because in a way we don't want to be touched. We like to stay here. And we prefer to read a scientific research on compassion and know everything about compassion, and nothing moves here. no movement in your heart, because we are so afraid to be vulnerable. We are so afraid to show something, to show who we are, to show our feelings. But it's feelings which connects us, not smart words. They don't connect. Sometimes when we read this traditional text, the problem is that they come from a different culture and they use different metaphors. And then we get into this discussion, and we kind of, the rational zone reads this verses literally, you know? So, and it's not like feeling into what is actually the experience from where the poet Tokme Zongpo speaks. And that's why I like the translation of Ken MacLeod, because for him it is more important to stay true to the experience than staying true to the literal meaning of the words. I taught this text before a few years ago in Göteborg, and someone put together 4 different translations for each verse, and tomorrow I will hand you that out, so then you can see how important first translation is and how much the experience can be distorted through the way. I mean, some translators, and that makes sense, they stick to the literal meaning. They try to find out what did that word mean 1,000 years ago. But Ken MacLeod is more, okay, what's the experience and what kind of words would we use today? What kind of metaphors would we use today? Because for him the experience is more important than a rational understanding. One movement of your heart is more important in that sense than knowing the 3 kinds of this and that and 5 steps to develop compassion or something, and then still nothing happens. Compassion is not a rational thing. It is an energetic movement in your whole being, and it is felt and it is expressed in that, from that felt sense. So this is a prayer. Maybe it's a little bit too early to read this prayer, but I will repeat it tomorrow, because I mean, you are all coming from the rational zone right now, from work and stuff like that. So and you're disconnected. You're disconnected from your heart, disconnected from your body. But I just want to do it. Yes. If it is better for me to be ill, give me the energy to be ill. If it's better for me to recover, give me the energy to recover. If it's better for me to die, give me the energy to die. So I read it again and see if you can kind of. So knowing the story of Tokme Zongpo, so imagine, he's a human. Sometimes that's a problem in the Tibetan tradition. They blow these people up into kind of light beings, Buddhas. He's a human being, just like us. And then at one point, this was his. I don't know. It's like when you end at the end of your rope, when everything falls apart, when you realize you can't control things, that nothing is in control, and everything can happen at any time. Our life can take a completely different turn in one moment, and it's completely out of our control. So when we experience sickness, mental sickness, physical sickness, when we lose people, and this is the human condition. It's not exceptional. But if you have experience like this, we all experience what Tokme Zongpo experienced. If it is better for me to be ill, give me the energy to be ill. If it's better for me to recover, give me the energy to recover. If it's better for me to die, give me the energy to die. Surrender. Oh, this is surrender. This is stepping into a yes. A deep yes to whatever life is throwing at you. So in the beginning of the book, Ken MacLeod describes the impact this prayer had on his life. And this was a period where he was in retreat, in a 3-year retreat. And how it sometimes happens in retreat is that in retreat you come in contact with all the stuff you don't want to feel. All the unfelt feelings of your life, you connect with them. All the traumatic experience, all the stuff you hoped actually meditation would help you not to feel them. I kind of bypass them, jump out of them. But of course, whatever you want to hear, you need to touch. So when you open in a retreat, and that what you didn't touch before will be there to be approached. It comes up, and it comes up because you have the opportunity to approach that which you don't want to feel in a different way, in a loving way, in a compassionate way. And so this is what happened to him in this retreat. And it became so bad that he couldn't participate in the practices anymore. He couldn't meditate. Nothing worked. I mean, nothing. He had the most amazing teachers in the world, and with all the practices, and he had a surrounding which were supporting this kind of experience, and nothing helped. Nothing helped. And then one of his teachers gave him this prayer, and that was then his contemplation. Was there someone at the door? No. So, and then he describes this experience where he goes for a walk, contemplating this prayer. And so contemplating means, you bring it with you into your heart, you chew it on it, you bring it into your guts. If it's better for me to be ill, give me the energy to be ill. And you don't discuss it in your head. What does it mean? What does it mean? Yeah. So no, it's like you feel into it. You enter the space from where these words come. So this is during the walk. As I looked around, I felt quiet in the joy of the moment, and at peace in the pain. And at peace in the pain. Then it hit me. This was the point of practice, nothing more. Every experience has infinite dimensions. Can you experience all of them without struggling against any of them? Can you experience all of them without struggling against any of them? If you can, then suffering comes to an end. So obvious, so simple, so deep, and so wonderful. Can you experience all of them without struggling against any of them? So this is what this text is about. So this is also a bit of a warning. Are you in it? Are you in? Does it make sense to you? Does it make sense to you that the ultimate medicine is love? And what you want to love, you need to touch. This is not a well-being course. Short way to well-being or something like that. This is a course about coming to a fundamental well-being which is bigger than anything which life can throw at you. And I don't want to threaten you with this. But life will throw this at you. And at everyone else. We're sitting in the same boat. That's the brother and sisterhood of humankind, including the pigs and chicks. Pigs and chickens. Pigs and chickens.
Same thing.
So this courage of the Bodhisattva, of the spiritual warrior, with the yearning to grow up, to heal, to wake up for the benefit of all. For these people, this text is written as an inspiration, as a warrior call. And it's the most difficult thing, of course, but it's your only hope. It's our only hope. Okay, so let's sit with that. Just 10 minutes. And if you like, you can close your eyes. If you have a tendency to sit a bit tight, then you soften. Notice what happens when you bring your awareness more towards your inner life. And as part of that gesture of welcoming yourself as a friend, your awareness or your attention slides into the body, even down into your legs and feet. And you notice what you bring with you into this moment. It can be a support to slide with awareness into the body when you ride on the in-breaths. So With each in-breath you slide, you drop into the body. Noticing your own energy, the weather, the inner weather. And of course there is thoughts, but allow yourself to take them less serious, like you don't emphasize them so much. How's your belly? And your shoulders. And maybe with the out-breath, there can be a tiny little bit letting go or releasing, softening by allowing this moment to be what it is. And just being here and being who you are. And then if you try to get something or you try to get rid of something, the out-breath, open that grasping as if you're opening a fist. Relax the grasping. Just being present here with what is. And then if you find yourself hooked in the rational zone, carried away, you gently return to the movement of the breath or to the sensation in your hands, to your own energy. Give yourself a break. Give yourself the permission to do nothing. As if you give yourself a big hug with breath and awareness. And returning, resting, softening. Then I call upon the presence of Tokme Zongpo and the lineage which goes back to him and then back to the Buddha. And the teachings came to me through the teachings of Lama Zopa and His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And for those who have a connection, I invite you to feel the loving gaze, the spacious warmth of unconditional love, as if you are bathing in the sun. The spacious stillness which is in the nature of love. Bathing your whole body from the toes to the top of your head. Particularly where you are stuck, where you're hard on yourself. Softening. Into the loving gaze. Softening a tiny little bit. So I want to read the verse again, the prayer. If it's better for me to be ill, give me the energy to be ill. If it's better for me to recover, give me the energy to recover. If it's better for me to die, give me the energy to die. the invitation with this text, but also with what I'm going to say about this text, is to notice how it makes you feel. So what is being said, how does it make you feel? What is happening in you? What is your response? And everything is allowed. Maybe your response to this was, what a bullshit. Useless for me. So maybe your response is resistance. Maybe your response is anger. Maybe your response is sadness. Maybe your response is a relief. So you feel that, wow, yes. If I let go of my agenda, if I connect a deep trust, if I open my being to what is happening, then there's a relief. And then you repeat. So this is also with the other verses. It's not like you read it, okay, so done, next. Yeah, now I've read it, done. And then you put it away. Another book you have read and nothing changed. Maybe you have accumulated some information, some Buddhist philosophy. This is really a problem in Western Buddhism. I mean, there's so many people who have read so much and they study years, and nothing happens. Then it's better to read one verse like this for the rest of your life and get it into your heart. And yeah. The knowledge you're not going to, I mean, if we now make a leap of faith into that the journey is going to continue, all the books, all the lists you're not going to take with you, they are completely useless. Because the rational zone collapses in the death process. But the movements of your heart, the spacious love, that is something which will be your ally. This text is a mystery. You're not going to figure it out in the rational zone. It's really a mystery. Love is a mystery. Of course, you can read a book about love, 800 pages about love, and pretend that now you know what love is, now you know what compassion is, now you know what mindfulness is. It's not that. It's not that what is in the books. And if you read in a body way, then the reading can be useful. So my wish is also with this weekend to kind of give you another angle on how to work with these Buddhist texts, with the traditional text. That they are not they are also talking to the rational zone, but there's a transmission in them of the experience. and that is something that is actually sometimes the rational zone can prevent you to feel into the experience. You think it's about learning the 3 kinds of compassion, like the words, the list. Entering a text, and that's why in the Tibetan tradition, these texts are venerated. So you would put a text like this on your altar, and you would prostrate to it. Yeah. And of course, you don't prostrate to the letters or you don't prostrate to the pages. I mean, they are just some ink on the paper. What you prostrate to is your own inner capacity of the awakened heart. And this text kind of speaks or comes from that awakened heart. And there's a teaching in Tibetan Buddhism that all these texts, they are actually manifestation of your own inner heart wisdom. Talking to you, kind of trying to wake you up. So your own inner heart reflects in this text and trying to, through the rational zone, trying to get through that and resonate with the truth of your own open heart. One of the challenges, I mentioned it before, but it's really important for us, is that we are used to read text within the rational zone, with the right half of our brain. Yeah? And then we get into discussion. Yeah? Like, let's say, I don't think, probably somewhere also Tokme Zongpo uses the word hell. Yeah? So the poet, Tokme Zongpo, uses the word hell. And then people can discuss a whole weekend about other hells, it's blah, blah, blah. But what is the experience Tokme Zongpo is coming from through this metaphor? So we get lost in a rational discussion, and we don't allow ourselves to be touched by the experience of being in hell. So we would say it in different words. I know many people who wake up in hell every day. They wake up in a world full of anxiety, depression, and sadness and darkness. They wouldn't say, if they would write a poem about the morning experience, every morning, people dread, some people I talk with, they dread to go to bed in the evening because they know that they are going to wake up in hell, because it has been like this for 10 years. So they are not going, if some of them would write a poem about their mornings, they wouldn't say hell, but they would find their words of their experience. And you know this experience. You know how it is, because you're a human being. You know exactly how it is to wake up in the morning in hell. Sometimes it happens when people pick up a text like this, an ancient text from India, or from Tibet. They put it aside because they say it's superstitious. They talk about hell. You miss the point. It's a sharing of an experience of humankind. Each of these verses, and it's like, it's amazing how modern it is, because it's the same. We're struggling with the same because it's so damn difficult to be human. We will have a short break soon. I'm saying that so you... Okay, so I can listen for 10 minutes more. But you don't need to remember what I say. So it's really more important that you kind of listen between the words, and also when I read the verses, and so to be more curious about your own inner life than trying to understand and argue with what I say. I always hate these handouts, but of course it's also good to have the first, But what happens when I give people a handout, I can't get them anymore. Because they go into the rational zone and try to understand what is being said. Here, I almost never hand out anything. So tomorrow we will start with the 37 practices, and so the text is, you can kind of a bit divide the text into the first 10 verses. They are about fundamental teachings. So those of you who are familiar with the Tibetan, the Gluk tradition, so it's like the basic Lamrim in the first 10 verses. And then there's a very important verse which is describing the practice of Tonglen, which is giving and taking, and I will explain that. So, one of the hard practices for many Tibetan practitioners is the practice of Tonglen, giving and taking, which is really like a practice which is counter-instinctual to the self-centered mind, to the self-important, the self-important mind. So it's counter-instinctual to this. So in the practice of Tonglen, you approach that which is difficult and you give away that which is bad. You approach that which is difficult and you give away that which is good. It's very scary. Because our instinct says, I want to have the good and I want to get rid of the bad. Yeah. So this is the practice of Tonglen is one of the main ego crushers. Yeah. I mean, you don't need to crush the ego because it does not exist, but it helps to. It helps the insight into the essencelessness of the ego, or however you want to call it. It's amazing practice. I mean, if you want to, some people like to keep it simple, and it's really good. So if you want to keep it very simple, then just pick up the practice of Tonglen for the rest of your life. That covers everything. It really covers everything. It's wisdom and compassion. You don't need to be more complicated than that. So, and that's what we are going to do tomorrow. And then there's 6 verses on what is called the 6 perfections, or the 6 far-reaching attitudes, which are 6 attitudes. The baby Bodhisattva. So again, a Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva is someone who dedicates his life, to waking up, to healing, growing up and waking up for the benefit of all. So the kind of yearning in your life, the undercurrent in your life, is your yearning to bring out your potential, your creative love. And then if that is your direction, if that is your yearning, and all your activities are coming from that, or are carried by that, then you are a baby Bodhisattva. And then you live a meaningful life. A truly meaningful life, and you will know it. So it's a bit like, I think it's sometimes easier for us to imagine someone whose undercurrent in life is to make more money. So imagine a person like that. Yeah, so imagine a person whose undercurrent, whose deepest yearning is to make more money. So what happens is, whatever this person does is colored by that. Everything. Sleeping, going to fitness, even doing yoga. Because, it's good to be attractive, then you can make more money. It's good to have a tight butt. Yeah, you can make more money. Everything. I mean, they even go to a party for social networking. Someone who wants to make more money does not see people. They see opportunities, and they approach people where they feel it will fit into the project of making more money. So that's what I mean with undercurrent. How an undercurrent in your life, can flavor all your activities. And when that undercurrent comes from the heart, from your yearning to be part of the solution and not the problem, from your yearning to come out, that is a bodhisattva. So, and the 6 perfections, they are, or the 6 far-reaching attitudes. Perfections is not a good word, because it sounds so like, that you need to be perfect. They are far-reaching because far-reaching attitudes, they bring you far. Yeah? So they bring you far in terms of individuation, in terms of coming out with your gifts. Yeah. Yes, and then there's a few more kind of little advices, and then it closes with the dedication. I mean, it's actually worth, to go through this 37 practices with one weekend for each verse. Yeah. Memorize it. Memorize the verse. Or pick. No, of course there will be verse. Do you say verses or verses?
Verses.
Verses. Yeah. They are. Of course, there are verses which will speak to you, and some verses will not speak to you. And then you pick the ones who speak to you, which where you feel some curiosity, or you feel some relief, or you feel some, wow, this is really something I want to work with. And then, we don't memorize so much anymore, unfortunately, but you can make a little card, or you can send yourself a reminder on your smartphone every day with one of. And then you so then it comes up again, and it comes up again, and it's amazing how many dimensions each of this teachings has. It changes, of course. You read them differently because different things happen in your life. But it's also interesting to kind of become curious when there is some I don't know, is there another word than verse? Stanza, yeah? So is stanza an English word or is it Tibetan? No, stanza?
I think it's in English.
It's in English. So I use stanza, I can pronounce that better. So when I use stanza, I mean verse, yeah? So it's also worth to kind of be curious about those stanzas which you struggle with, where you feel a lot of resistance, where you feel, well, so this is Tibetan, bullshit, cultural, yeah, and then, but it's also very interesting to look into that, because why? What is it? What is it what I'm struggling with here? Maybe it's touching something you don't want to see, or something you could, work with. So it's also, I mean, it would be silly to kind of sit here and, wanting to hear things you already know, or only things which make you feel make you feel good. I mean, I hope I also provoke you. Yeah, because that's like, yes, I definitely want to provoke you. I mean, do you want to come to a teaching and hear only things you already knew? And yeah, this is a great teacher. I completely agree with what he says. I don't know why people get money for that. So that's also be curious. Yeah. With your own responses. And, you can tell me anything. I mean, if you want, you can share your responses. If you think this was really stupid, what I said, please say it. So, before the 37 practices, there's like two stanzas. It's like a tradition in the Tibetan tradition. Before you come to the text, that there's like some kind of preparation, and usually the first opening of this text is a paying homage. Yeah? I pay homage to. So there's different possibilities, some say I pay homage to my gurus, some say, I pay homage to wisdom, some say I pay homage to compassion. And this text starts with a homage to Avalokiteshvara. Yeah? I pay homage to Avalokiteshvara. That fits. Yeah? So that is an iconic representation of Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion, Chenrezig in Tibetan. So it's the same with these texts. Yeah? So they are, this is like an archetypical symbol of the union of compassion and wisdom. I don't know, it could be that we even would draw it similar, if we would deeply contemplate the union of wisdom and compassion, and would make a drawing out of it. Or if our dream world would come up with a symbol of the union of compassion and wisdom. And there's a lot of meaning in that. Maybe I can go into this later. So Avalokiteshvara can be translated as something like the Lord who gazes upon the world. The Lord who gazes upon the world. Yeah? So homage to compassion. That's how That's how Avalokiteshvara starts. So here, compassion. Compassion, based on a text of an Indian master, Chandakirti, in a text actually about wisdom. In this text, Chandakirti also starts with homage to compassion. And based on that text, in the Tibetan tradition, they talk about 3 levels of compassion. Yeah? So, the first 2 levels of compassion, they are dualistic compassion. Dualistic compassion. The third level of compassion is non-dual compassion. And Avalokiteshvara is a symbol for non-dual compassion. And we will explore that deeply in this text, because this text is about non-dual compassion. So the first level of compassion is the ache in your heart when you see suffering in others. And when I say people, again, I am not going to repeat it again. This includes pigs and chickens. So the ache in your heart and the wish for relief and the wish to do something about it. Yeah? So it's not like, oh yeah, may you be happy, goodbye. Yeah? So it is that. So this is what I mean. Compassion is not nice. People say, oh, compassion, compassion. The warm heart, open your heart. Compassion is touching pain and being open for pain, being open for suffering, starting with your own suffering. The extent of your compassion depends on the extent you can be with your own suffering, with your own pain. It's not, it's difficult. It's really difficult. It's even difficult. That level of compassion is even difficult with only one person, as you know. How often have you closed your heart because it became too much? You didn't want to get involved. It's too much. No. So in this, and it's dualistic compassion because there's someone here, a real me. And this real me sees real suffering in a real other. And this is separate. And this breeds a lot of stuff. This breeds what Trungpa Rinpoche calls idiot compassion. Yeah? Neurotic compassion. Puffed up compassion. The compassion bulldozer. The burning out compassion because it's not working as you wish, or you kind of call it compassion, but it's actually love me, love me. Yeah? It's wanting to have, and it's also based on this puffed up idea that you know what is good for people, giving advice. And with that advice, kind of puffing yourself above other people because they are the ones who need to be helped. Which is like, I'm the helper. Yeah? So it's quite, it's difficult that level of compassion to practice it in a healthy way if there is this ignorance of separation. And when you are with what you call compassion, if that in any way makes you depressed or makes you feeling overwhelmed or makes you hopeless, then you are in that idiot compassion. That's not that compassion, even not the first level compassion. It's not compassion at all. Yeah. It's idiot compassion. It's good, but I keep on doing idiot compassion because otherwise suddenly the hospitals, there would be nobody. I mean, there's hardly anyone there on the wards. Yeah. But so, I mean, keep on doing your idiot compassion, but then learn about the other compassion and try to heal that which prevents you to be really compassionate. So this compassion is already quite mind-blowing because it's also compassion towards people you don't like. Immigrants, people like that. Yeah, maybe here I would say Nazis. Yeah, or it's compassion to people who suffer. When you meet pain, and so because you feel their pain. And you wish them to be free of pain. And you wish to move when it's possible. So that's the first level. The second level of compassion is compassion which at the same time recognizes the impermanence, the non-static nature of the one who has compassion and the one who's being helped. That it is all changing, moving all the time. So that's like recognizing that, okay, now I'm sitting here, I'm the one who teaches, and suddenly I have a stroke, and is the nurse here? No nurse, shit. Suddenly you have to carry me to the ward, to the hospital.
Just make a phone call.
And yes, there the teacher gone. Yeah, teacher gone. The teacher is gone. Can't talk anymore. But also, what that means is that kind of compassion means you also have compassion to people who are well. So you have compassion with the successful people, with the beautiful people, with the rich people. You have compassion because you see that their happiness is conditioned happiness, hedonistic happiness, relative happiness, and they will fall. They will lose it. Yeah? So we extend our compassion from someone who's obviously suffering to all people. Because hedonistic happiness, success is not reliable. And you see that. It's like your heart goes out to someone who is successful and beautiful and young. And you feel, oh, yeah. I wish you genuine happiness. I wish you genuine love. I wish you genuine freedom. So this is quite alien for a more kind of low-level compassion. No, this is kind of alien for the way we usually would define compassion. So now the third level of compassion. And that's Avalokiteshvara, the union of wisdom and compassion. So the loving gaze here of Avalokiteshvara is also a deep seeing of how things really exist. So that's the two. Insight into emptiness and compassion, also sometimes called ultimate bodhicitta. And this is what the Buddha shared in the Prajnaparamita Sutras, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. Non-dual compassion. How to say something about that? After the break. So let's have 10 minutes break. Let's start with sitting quietly. Adjusting your posture and checking in. With the breath sliding into the body. Softening. And could you allow yourself to find a place of rest in the midst of your experience? Rest within what is, by allowing, by giving space. Kind of, if your experience is like an ocean, you sink into the depth of the ocean, into that which is still. Becoming like space through which feelings and thoughts, sensations fall like snow. Or autumn leaves moving and their stillness, presence. Everything comes and goes. And you let the leaves dance or the snow fall. Opening, softening. Finding a yes. heart like the sky. And returning when you bite a hook, when you get entangled into the rational zone, you drop again. Let everything happen to you. Sounds, sensations, feelings, my voice, thoughts. They are like autumn leaves. And you are the space. Nothing is excluded. There's nothing to do, nothing to understand. Compassionate presence. The loving gaze. Who is not interfering with the dance of the leaves. Imagine that stillness is infused with warmth. The warmth of the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa, of Jesus, bathing you, holding you. warms with the scent of roses. Soothing you, caressing you. Listen with your heart. So non-dual compassion. Maybe one way. So the challenge here with non-dual compassion is that it is undescribable. It is ungraspable. So homage to the undescribable, ungraspable. And it's impossible to share this with the rational zone. So if throughout the weekend I come in my own what I say, but also in the stanzas, to places where your rational mind, the one who wants to understand, is really challenged and confused, then that is a sign that an attempt is being made to share what non-dual compassion is, and an attempt from your side is being made to understand with the rational soul. This it sounds silly, of course, if you are not familiar with that kind of paradoxical information, because you're mainly, at least right now, sitting here trying to understand something. You're trying to get it with the rational zone. And then, if you have never moved into the undescribable, unapproachable, or you have even never questioned if there's something like that, of course, then you think it's stupid. And it's really wonderful how Tokme Zongpo actually starts with, first, of course, with the homage to Avalokiteshvara. So that's already homage to the undescribable, to the ungraspable. So there's a symbol, but a symbol is inexhaustible, and it is not that what it is pointing to. But in the first verse, Tokme Zongpo points to the undescribable, ungraspable. He says, and this is the homage to Avalokiteshvara, you who see that experience has no coming or going. You who see that experience has no coming or going. So this is the insight into emptiness. You see that experience has no coming or going, yet pour your energy solely into helping beings. So you see that experience has no coming or going, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Yet you pour your energy solely into helping beings. My excellent teachers, so that is his teachers, and Lord all-seeing, that's Avalokiteshvara, I ever humbly honor with my body, speech and mind. So this first verse of the first stanza, maybe I'm too tired, somehow I don't want to go there. But also because, I don't know some of you, so, and moving out of the rational zone is difficult in our culture. Because, it's I don't want to appear insane. But from the rational mind point of view, this is insane. But from the non-dual point of view, believing that this moment exists as it is insane. Believing that this moment exists as it appears is insane. Believing that this moment exists as it appears is insane. Believing that a dream is real is insane. From the rational point of view, saying that this is a dream, there's no coming and going, no real coming and going, is insane. But maybe, so one way to kind of get a taste into what non-dual compassion is to meet a person who is oozing compassion, who is compassion. And I just describe a little, maybe two if there's enough time. Like 20 years ago, I was in Australia. It was before I became a monk. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama came teaching to came to a teaching in Australia, and he was teaching in Melbourne. And they had rented this football stadium, and there were 20,000 people coming to that talk. So we were going there, and it seemed like the whole city. Where are they all going? And they all went into that stadium, and it was like this kind of thing. So and down there was the field where they played, and it was full of people. Yeah. So then His Holiness arrives. Yeah. No light show. Yes. No. How are these girls who dance before a football game? Cheerleaders. Nothing. No music. Nothing. Yeah. And I sat high up, His Holiness was big like this. Yeah. So he steps onto the stage with his sandals, flippers, Indian flippers, with a bag. Yeah. Nothing more. Just a simple monk. And he folds his hand, and it's like, ah. And I look around, and people start to cry. Yeah. He has not said, he has just like this. Yeah. And it was like, it's like, maybe if you have ever been in a wonderful concert hall with a kind of more like a spiritual, like a classical music which comes out of that space, there are these moments where the audience, the orchestra, and the Bach who wrote the music become one. Yeah? Non-dual. There's no separation. And His Holiness, when he does like this, 20,000 people feel seen, met. And there is not, there is His Holiness and I'm here, and so nothing of that. That's like that force field of stillness and unconditioned love. Space fused with warmth. And he has not said anything about compassion. He has not explained anything. He has not entered the rational zone at all. He has just done like this. Yeah. And it feels like he sees you. Because he sees everyone. Because we are not separate. We are not separate from him. We are not separate from each other. It's not like he is the superstar and we are different. No, it's like no separation. Nobody is getting helped and nobody is helping. It's just spacious love, spacious aliveness. No agenda. So now I tell you what compassion is and what you have to do, and none of that. So then you get that's like a felt sense of, non-dual compassion. It's also called objectless compassion. Objectless compassion. Yeah. That's also, I mean, when you read, when you read how people experience when they meet the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, they say often something like he was on. First, I felt completely seen and recognized and loved, but there was not like he is the superstar, spiritual superstar, and I'm the suffering being. Yeah, it's not like that. Yeah. So His Holiness sees there is no coming and going, and solely pours his love into that space. So it's not like, oh, there's no coming and going, so I don't care. No, there's no coming and going, and that brings forth unconditional love. And that unconditional love is not coming from His Holiness, it's everywhere. He becomes like a kind of channel for that, or I don't know how it works. But it's not his love. It's our love. It has no source. And there's no discrimination. The other experience I want to share with that is, and then the evening is finished. The first time I met that objectless compassion was when I did a 3-month retreat in Tushita, in Tushita Center in Dharamsala. And during that retreat, that was before I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about Tibetan Buddhism or something. I just signed up for that because I don't know why. So in doing that, we had the opportunity to meet one of the old masters. He passed away a few years ago, Ribo Rinpoche. And Ribo Rinpoche had suffered in Chinese concentration camps for 20 years. And these were really concentration camps. And I didn't know that then. And I was very suspicious towards the Lama thing. And we went to the monastery of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he was living there. He was maybe 80 then. And he was in this tiny room, and he was sitting on his bed. There was nothing in this room, just an altar full with texts. There was not even a statue in that room, just texts. And he was just sitting there, the super grandfather, Superman grandfather. And he didn't speak English, and he was just sitting there. And we stepped into this room. We were 6 or 7 people. We hardly fitted into it, and sat on the floor. And it was just like, it's like this feeling of, if I die now, it's fine. Now I know what this is all about. And he has not said one word. And so just his whole body, it was like a force field. A bit more intensive actually than the one I experienced before, because he was just sitting there. I could smell him. And it was a wonderful scent. The best perfume ever. And then I had a bit of a strange image coming up. And that was, I had the feeling I would reach into my heart and take my heart out of my chest and put it into his hands and say, look after this, you can do this better than myself. Yeah. And again, there was no like a puffed up authority, but complete humanity. Completely human. Fully human. Later in an interview I read where he explained his life experiences, and the interviewer asked him if in all these years in the concentration camp, if he was ever afraid. And his answer was, this answer is like life-changing, but especially when you have met him, because you knew that this was genuine, what he said. So what he said was, yes, once I was afraid. I was afraid I would lose my compassion towards the Chinese. Yeah. I was afraid I would lose the compassion with the Chinese. So that is objectless compassion. No separation. Nobody helping someone. No coming and going. Yet unconditional love. No agenda. No, I am right and you are wrong. I am enlightened and you are lost. No separation. Just love. Unconditional love. And that's the only fear Rinpo Rinpoche had. He might lose that. Everything else can be lost. Everything is worth nothing. Everything will be taken away from you. Nothing is reliable. Nothing can be a real refuge. Because everything else is insubstantial, will pass, is impermanent, is non-static, and is worthless in a way. So the last thing, so objectless compassion, non-dual compassion is so what I want to say is an ideal. For us. Something which might pull us, something which calls us, something which is surrounding us and pervading us, and that is our true nature. Our nature is love. Unconditional love, non-dual love. But it's good to appreciate and celebrate little movements, like little, like maybe something moved in you when I told that story. And this was a good example of, it's not about the words were on the surface. So kind of the words were like a kind of a bit of a helpless attempt from my side to share an experience with you. And of course, while I say the words, they fall out of my mouth, and they kind of like dead leaves. And I think, shit, this was not how it was. I can't say how it was. Yeah. But maybe something in you moved with me, or that which kind of I connected with kind of had some resonance in you. And that's really good enough. And if it's only 1 millisecond of a glimpse, that's good enough. And then, of course, the rational mind kicks in. But so, it's like, I mean, we are making baby steps, and it's so precious to make these baby steps, to have glimpses, to have like an intuition, to have like, yes. This, I know. So, no, I don't know, because blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and then there's, again, something, an opening, a relief, a hope. Yeah. Don't aim for perfection. That's very frustrating, because if you aim for perfection, if you aim for having an open heart and love everyone, then you will not appreciate the little softening, the little movements, the little like, yes, if I actually could love who I am, unconditionally, completely, radically, wow, then I would be free. Because the mess of your life you can't fix. It's not going to work out well for you, the whole thing. No, really. It's not. But you can step out of it. You can connect with that which is bigger. You can make the backward step out of the identification with the narrative self, which you are not, into the background. And in the background, we are all one. We are connected. There's no separation. There's no you and me. There's no, I'm here and I have to have compassion with you because that's what a good Swedish person does. And science shows it's healthy. It's none of that. It's effortless. It's effortless. It's also not it's without agenda. It's without. It's also nothing you to be proud about, or write a book about, or something, because it's not personal. It has nothing to do with what you think you are. The constant maintenance of the process of how important you are, and how separate you are, and how lonely you are, and how traumatized you are, and how difficult your life is because next week you will lose your job, and so blah, 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 yeah? You can, for a moment, you can just drop that because it's made up. And if you drop it, and in that is the story of separation, and maybe the story you need to help others, yeah, which are also real and have real problems. Then you drop that, and the wonderful thing or the mystery is that, as Tokme Zongpo says, yet pour your energy solely into helping beings. So, out of that dissolving of the narrative self and dropping into what you always were, comes this energy which helps. And an intelligence knowing what needs to be done. Knowing, and it's not knowing, I know what is good for you. It is it's in the present moment the appropriate response to the situation, including your own limits, including your own pain, including what you can do and what you cannot do and not do, including how healthy you are at that moment. So everything is included. I can't stop. Okay, I continue tomorrow. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Sleep well and come back, because it's really good to come back.